Villains can be the most dramatic characters. They keep heroes guessing and they keep fans on their toes. The true mark of a great villain? Surprising even the most seasoned of fans. Iron Man being revealed as a sleeper agent for Kang was really unexpected, because it was about as random as it sounds. How? When? Why? These are all questions that folks had at the time, and not all of them were satisfactorily answered. This was because the story had moments where it even contradicted itself. If you want to check it out, at your own peril of course, you can find it as part of the Crossing event. There are moments after the reveal where even Iron Man himself seems to struggle to remember that he is actually one of the bad guys here. It was a twist even he never expected, I imagine. But I guess if you are a sleeper agent, that makes sense. You wouldn't expect it because you never knew that you were evil. It was deep, it was repressed. Technically, he wasn't working for Kang directly, but instead he'd been influenced by Immortus, who is an alternate timeline version of Kang the Conqueror. Not a sleeper agent, but a person we weren't expecting to secretly be a villain, I'll say that much. This next point also involves a hero that wasn't really what he seemed. Although unlike Iron Man, his history as a hero wasn't as established or well known in the comics. He was quite a bit more mysterious. So maybe we should have expected this. Baphomet is a hero who ends up befriending Batman, even becoming so trustworthy of an ally that Bruce reveals his true face to Baphomet and even brings him to the Batcave. This ended up being a mistake on Batman's part, as Baphomet used this opportunity to drop his disguise so he could attack and kill the woman Bruce loved the most at the time, his fiancée, Silver St. Cloud, revealing himself to not truly be the hero Baphomet, but instead the villain Automatopoeia. Another villain plot twist that I know I personally was not expecting comes from the Batman camp. It's pretty twisted though, because Joker this time around doesn't actually target Batman or Gotham, but instead sets his sights on an even more godlike hero, Superman, and his city of Metropolis. What Joker was thinking here, I honestly have no idea. I don't know how he thought he could just come out of this attack if it was successful, especially alive. But maybe that was all part of his plan. Maybe he didn't expect nor want to come out alive. Well, he certainly didn't end up doing that, I'll tell you that much. In the Injustice reality, Joker and Harley Quinn team up to trick Superman into thinking Doomsday has returned. This causes Superman to go into a paranoid rage, fighting against Doomsday, who is later revealed to have been actually Lois. Oh no. But Superman was simply made to hallucinate Lois as Doomsday, which is how this all happened. In addition, Joker and Harley used this distraction to blow up Metropolis, causing Superman to kill Joker during his interrogation and renounce his former peaceful ways, becoming a superhero dictator who refuses to tolerate the state of the world any longer, basically forcing it into a totalitarian time of peace. Speaking of destructive villains, Galactus is known for being a destroyer on a much greater scale, I would say, than the Joker. He's a world destroyer, and the last thing I'd ever expect to see him doing is creating life. Hence why this twist involving him was so surprising. It wasn't your typical villain twist either, as it didn't have to do with him tricking someone or devising the end of a planet or a universe. It was actually kind of just the opposite. This Galactus, of course, was an alternate version who was basically forced back into an egg to incubate for longer than he had when he became Galactus, when Galen became Galactus. It was suggested that this was why Galactus was a destroyer, because he basically just wasn't fully cooked when he came into the world. So that's why he ended up being a bad guy. Kind of like a Pandora's box scenario, like you open Pandora's box and all the bad stuff comes out, but then you close it because you're scared. But really you should have just kept that open for longer because there was good stuff underneath. The plan worked, and after a little bit of extra time in his egg, Galactus instead emerged not as the world devourer, but instead as the life bringer, a creator of worlds instead of a destroyer and devourer of them. Moving on, Grail recently made a surprising reappearance in the comics. We haven't seen her for a while, and she is one of my favorite Wonder Woman villains. She's the daughter of an Amazon assassin, Myrna, and new god, Darkseid. She's pretty epic. She's basically like the opposite of Wonder Woman. While she is a great Wonder Woman villain, it was pretty cool and unexpected to see her agree to work with other fellow Wonder Woman villains at the behest of the Sovereign and the United States. And if you want to catch more Grail action, you gotta go check out the new Wonder Woman series, Wonder Woman from 2023 by Tom King. It's really good. At least so I hear. I hear it's really good. Everything that I've seen in it looks really good. I gotta add it to my pull list, and I gotta catch up and read all of it. While Khonshu has never particularly been known as the most gracious, kindest, or compassionate of gods, he is usually an ally to Moon Knight. And while Moon Knight isn't always a perfect cookie-cutter hero, he is ultimately a hero, except for this time around. That's because Khonshu made Mark into an antagonist when he sought to defeat Mephisto, who he claimed was basically attempting to take over the Earth. So he was like, Mark, you gotta help me, we gotta beat Mephisto, just trust me. The problem was that Khonshu got Mark to gather the Avengers' weapons and items of power, hoping to use them to defeat Mephisto, so that he could basically rule Earth himself. Next up, one of my favorite reveals of all time, especially in regards to the MCU, not only because it was fairly unexpected, even as someone who has a pretty good handle on who Agatha Harkness is and what she's capable of, but because it has to be the catchiest villain reveal ever. While we all had many theories for who was the great villain in WandaVision, other than maybe Wanda herself to an extent, other theories were simply just more popular than Agatha being the one behind it all. I mean, we all knew it was probably Agatha Harkness there, we all knew that, but to think that she was the mastermind, not a lot of us were expecting that, to be fair. Agatha, while sometimes a villain, is more well known as an ally in the comics, so for it to be revealed that she was actually the one behind it, that it had been Agatha all along, that caught us by surprise. Over at DC Comics, we have another usually ally who instead was revealed to be a villain. Perhaps not the whole time, but definitely upon his return. Jason Todd was a character that we never expected to see again, so his coming back at all was pretty shocking. For a while there, it was implied that Jason would be Hush, and in fact, that was the initial intention for the Hush reveal in the comics. Fun fact. And this might have been one of the few indications to fans that DC Comics was maybe thinking about planning his return. Jason Todd came back to Batman's world not as a former ally and Robin, but instead as just the opposite, a villain who blamed Batman for the fact that the man who nearly killed him was still on the loose. Of course, that man being the Joker. As such, Jason Todd had a different approach to vigilantism once he returned that made him a villain at the start, and more of an anti-hero, I'd say, as he's evolved. Heroes becoming villains is one thing, but what about when villains become heroes? Or disguising themselves as heroes, at least. When it comes to Spider-Man alternates, we have a lot of them, it's true. But one that I would have never expected to see is a version of Spider-Man who was a straight-up villain. Or, scratch that, a version of Spider-Man who was just straight up one of his most iconic villains, Dr. Octopus. But that is what we got with this story arc. Doc Ock's body was failing, and he managed to convince Peter to visit him before he shuffled off this mortal coil. However, this of course was a trap, and Otto used this opportunity to swap bodies with the young Spider-Man. As a result, Spider-Man's mind ended up in Doc Ock's failing body, and Doc Ock's mind ended up in Peter's much younger and powerful one. Surprise, surprise. This was how Dr. Octopus was able to defeat death, but tragically, Spider-Man actually did end up dying here, even more surprising. Or at least he died at the time. His consciousness would actually still live on somewhat as it existed to some extent within his body, and later on, Otto would relinquish Spider-Man's body back to the consciousness of Peter, which was left remaining inside his physical form. Basically got stronger as time went on, and then eventually Otto was like, you know what? Maybe you should just be you, and I'll just be me. We'll just go our separate ways. Superior Spider-Man, out. Not quite as dramatic as a body swap, but still pretty dramatic. I really love this next one. And I think for many of us, this twist caught us completely by surprise. Might be the most twisty reveal we've ever had. In fact, this twist and character became so iconic that she made her way from the animated universe to the comic book one. Yeah. Have you guessed it yet? Yeah, I'm talking about Andrea Beaumont, and the reveal that she was actually the Batman antagonist, Fantasma. Andrea Beaumont was introduced to us as one of Bruce's old flames, who he actually almost ended up settling down with back in the day. She knew Bruce better than most others, which that is also what made it such a great and compelling reveal and twist, because it also then kind of made sense that Phantasm was such a great foil for Batman, because she was someone that knew Bruce so well, so kind of works out, kind of makes sense. That's about it. I'm just me, Amanda McKnight, and until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube. Bye!